Well, I think we all, people living here in Israel and Palestine, have been going through a very hard time since October 7th. And actually since October 7th and the war in Gaza, during the whole period of the war in Gaza, we've been following very closely the public discourse, both domestically in Israel and also globally. And we've been noticing a very simple discourse where you're either with us or against us. You're either pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. And our lives, you know, the people, the Palestinian community in Israel and people who work in and believe in shared society, sometimes we think that we live in a parallel universe where our lives and our stories are much more complicated than the public discourse. We, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, for example, on the one hand, live in Israel and are directly affected by the implications of the war on all the citizens of Israel. For example, if rockets are fired on Israel, we run to a shelter, and we're very lucky if we can find one in our villages and townships. When the economy is affected, we also lose money and budgets and savings, and sometimes lose our jobs. And we work with Jewish colleagues, we live next to Jewish neighbors, but at the same time, we are Palestinians. We share with every other Palestinian in the world the language, the culture, the history, and the narrative. We wake up every day and see the testimonies about the deep humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and we are deeply saddened. We are deeply saddened once for the humanitarian crisis, and the other time for not being able to express our solidarity or empathy to this crisis because of the systematic policies of silencing and incitement against us from the level of the government, but also the level of the public institutions and the media. That's what we're dealing with, and that is much more complicated than the public discourse today going on today.
And Ofer, when you listen to your colleague and you're suffering your own trauma since October 7th, I wonder how you also process it and whether your attempts to bridge these divides, which have been going on long predating October 7th, how that has been affected. Let me just put some statistics. Arabs make up about 20% of the population, and you both say that your group is the overlooked key to building bridges for the future.
Yeah, so first of all, the past few months have been terrible for all of us in Israel and the Palestine territories. And I think when you look at the Arab society within Israel and its relationship with Jewish citizens of Israel, it's maybe the one biggest group of people in this whole area, in this very highly segregated area, especially in this war time, that maintain a sort of relation of solidarity and partnership. And the Arab society in Israel maintain those kind of relation, both, as Raghad mentioned, with Jewish citizens of Israel and with Palestinians across the border in the West Bank and in Gaza. And we think that this situation is both a reflection of the conflict, because those kind of relationship between Arabs and Jews inside Israel are a very partial and flawed partnership yet, that characterized by all of the hardship of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, also within Israel. But at the same time, it's also a key element for the solution of the wider conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because if we will succeed in making those relationships between Jewish citizens of Israel and Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel a more equal and a more truly shared relationship based on equality, then it will be also one piece of the puzzle of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict that will be better. also can serve as a kind of a model for creating a wider solution. And also in this situation, the Arab-Palestinian citizens of Israel voice in the public sphere and their aspiration for peace and share a life between Palestinians and Israelis will be bigger and louder and can promote also a peaceful resolution of the wider conflict, as we saw also already in the early 90s when Arab political representatives were more influential in the political sphere in Israel, which led to the Oslo agreements.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about how your unique relationship as citizens of Israel could be a pattern for a future, bigger, more important relationship to solve the issue in the end. I just wanted to know, though, obviously from Raghad's perspective, you have just talked about a number of crackdowns that have happened against Israel's Arab-Palestinian citizens since October 7th, whether in the media, whether in jobs, whether in, you said governments having to tighten their belt, 3 times more money and funds for Arab, institutions are being cut inside Israel. How does that feel, and does it exacerbate tensions even between you citizens of Israel?
Yes, indeed. I think one of the things that we all share today is the lack of personal security, the personal insecurity. And I think that, it differs from the reasons might vary, but the fact is that we all feel fear, and the Palestinian citizens of Israel precisely feel fear because of the persecution that has been going on since the beginning of the war, and because of policies like the arming civilian policy that the government is promoting as part of the policies of the war, where it will create 2 groups of citizens, the Jewish armed strong group and the weak minority, Palestinian minority, and that will have direct implications on the possibility of escalation of the relationship between Jews and Arabs, of violence in the streets like we saw before in May 21 and in earlier occasions. That is something that we feel, that is something that we experience, and that is something that we at Sikkuy-Aufoq and our colleagues in the civil society, Palestinian and shared civil society, have been working very, very hard to try and prevent.
Mm-hmm. And Ofer, you have talked about, and you guys wrote a joint column for the Times on this. You say, Ofer, that, Arab Israelis, Jewish Israelis are getting their news since October 7th from completely different sources, which means different perspectives are being, seen by different communities. Does this not make it much more difficult for you now to continue your bridge-building efforts and trying to build relationships?
Yes, it is. And we also see in research that has been done since the October 7 that the feelings of fear and animosity and hostility among the 2 groups grow bigger. And we, on the other hand, we see also in those polls that in cases where Jews had meaningful interaction with Arabs before the war, in those cases, the fear relations are significantly lower. So one of the things that we are working on, and Raghad mentioned the issue of personal security in public space. So one of the things that we are working on is to create more inclusive environment, both in public spaces like public parks, and also in museums and in universities and in public transportation, environments that can reflect the collective identity of both people living here, both Arab and Jews, and create a feeling of home for both of them, and in that way give them a bigger personal security and also bigger confidence in creating meaningful interactions with each other from a place of equality and feeling of belongingness, equal belongingness to this place.
Mm-hmm. And very briefly, I'm going to give the last word to Raghad, but I want to read something and have you, jump off it. Again, you write in the Times, the delicate position that you occupy provides a rare commodity in the region, the ability to see a broader and more nuanced picture and serve as a bridge to a long-lasting solution to the war and the larger conflict. Do you think, Raghad, and I guess Ofer as well, that it is still possible to do this? Because don't forget, we remember there was almost civil war, if not, there was fighting between your two communities a few years ago, actual fighting inside Israel. Do you think you still have a chance? And what needs to be done to make that chance live?
We will always continue hoping for a better future and doing everything that we can in order to reach it. I think that as much as this period is a challenge for all of us, it can also be an opportunity, because a lot of the conceptions around Arab-Jewish relationship and equality in Israel have been broken since October 7th. And it's an opportunity to think about our definition or redefine shared society based on equality. What does it mean? Is it enough to promote material equality in terms of budgets and resources, or we should be talking about also collective equality, an equality that brings into the equation our complex identities, our collective rights, and be based not only on material equality, but on essential equality and mutual respect.
And Ofer, your
I want to
view,
echo
yes.
that and said that, that I think we're in the midst of a paradigm shift, also within the Israeli citizenship, as Raghad mentioned, but also in the wider context of the conflict. I think the idea that the conflict can be managed as it was during the last 15 years is collapsing in front of our eyes. And I think on the one hand, we hear extreme right-wing agenda to create a Jewish hegemony of all of the space between the Jordan and the sea. But on the other hand, we hear more than before, more than in previous year, the idea of there is no other alternative than a peaceful resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Well,
and I believe that part of this resolution should be also to make sure that the status of the Arab minority within Israel is secured, and the relationship between Jews and Palestinians within the Israeli citizenship are based on true and full equality and partnership.
Well, it's great to see you working towards that. Ofer, Dagan, Raghad, Jaraisy, thank you both very much indeed for joining us.